the idea was to tear Wolverine down, and even the next issue we'll see him at a very low point, but we start to kind of build things back up again, and you can see how this all dovetails into X-Men Schism.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and once again I have Doc with me today to finish our conversation about his favorite superhero, Wolverine. How you doing today, Doc?
I'm still great, dude.
Oh yeah, so it was recently your birthday, right? I think we forgot to wish you a happy birthday on the channel, man.
Yeah, it was last week.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Well, happy belated birthday. You must be what, like 25 now?
Yeah, 39.
Oh, so you're catching up to me, but
I know, right?
That's the way time works. You'll never catch up to me. I'll always be your elder.
I know.
The elder statesman in the channel, at least between the two of us.
Yep.
All right, so we talked about what a great character Wolverine is, kind of the elements, and how he was built up over the years, some of the better writers and artists on the character. So let's talk about some of the changes. He's been changed a lot over the years. He's not nearly as rough around the edges as he was in the early days of the character. Who started Dadverine, and who do you think took Dadverine too far?
Well, the origins of it actually are stupid. It was a Tumblr joke about the fact that Wolverine always had like a teenage girl sidekick. It started with Kitty, with him kind of taking Kitty under his wing, and then it continued with Jubilee, and then Armor, and then it kept going, and it started becoming Wolverine and teenage girl sidekick. And then, but part of it was Jason Aaron. And, Jason Aaron came on to X-Men as a huge Wolverine fanboy. And as a result, you ended up with, just kind of this really dull character. It took all of the edge off of him. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy that took it too far, but he's definitely the guy that started it in the comics, with taking what was otherwise just kind of a, every so often he'd kind of take a younger mutant under his wing and teach them how to protect themselves, because that's really what it came down to. Kitty didn't know how to fight, so he turned her into a freaking ninja. Jubilee really wasn't his sidekick. Jubilee was almost his bodyguard, because his body was falling apart at the time, and his healing factor was failing. And then Armor also didn't really know how to fight or anything. She could just protect herself. So Wolverine taking a younger character under his wing and teaching them how to take care of themselves was always kind of quintessential to the character, because he didn't want to have to be always looking over his shoulder, figuring in a fight whether or not he has to come and bail your ass out. But I think when it went too far was when they did the whole schism thing with Cyclops, because both of them took the wrong side of that stance. Wolverine didn't want the kids fighting, but Cyclops said they're going to have to. And Wolverine didn't even want to teach them how to fight, which goes entirely against everything that had been established up until that point. And that's when he kind of really started becoming Dadverine. And it took all the edge off the character. But again, that was also Jason Aaron. So Jason Aaron really started it, and Jason Aaron broke it too, by taking it way too far.
Yeah, that's not in character at all. Wolverine is always, he wants you to be self-reliant and be able to handle yourself in a scrap.
Yeah. And they took that away from him. They took that away from the character and then focused on him just wanting Wolverine, to help mutants that don't have to fight. And I thought that was ridiculous.
So would you call that character deconstruction, or do you think that's just character misrepresentation?
I think it's character demolition. I mean, it's not even, well, because it's not even a deconstruction. You know, a deconstruction would be like breaking it down and kind of, you know, exploring all the parts of it. And that had nothing to do with that. That was just throw out everything about the character and come up with somebody new in his skin. It wasn't even Wolverine anymore. No, I would have to call it character demolition.
We're starting to talk about some of the changes that maybe haven't been as effective. I don't like Dadverine either. Wolverine, you know, he's that uncle that wants to help you out, but he's not there to baby you, you know.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. But, you know, there's been some other changes, you know, he's evolved over the years. What's one change you wish you could remove permanently from the history of the character?
His origin. I wish that we could find out that his origin that we've gotten, you know, with his name and all the because it took all the mystery out. Like the Origin miniseries, it was a genie that you can't put back in the bottle after you open it, and it really, you know, all of the mystery of Wolverine's history coming out and you know, being laid bare and him remembering his whole history and everything, it kind of took way too much away from the character. It changed him too much. And as a result, we end up with somebody boring in its place. So I'd have to say the one thing that I wish we could permanently remove is him knowing his own history.
And he's, you know, his history is he's James
Howlett.
Howlett, yes. I almost said Ouellette, but I was like, I don't think he's French.
No, no, he's Western Canadian, like British Columbia.
And you know, how did they get that wrong? Should they just have never have done it, or was the history just not right for the character?
Well, the history wasn't entirely wrong for the character, but the fact that we know what it is, it kind of softened him up too much. I mean, it kind of made it, let's be honest, it made him look like a bitch as a teen. He you know, him pining over some, you know, he basically gets cucked over this girl Rose that he has a thing for, by some dude at I don't remember if it was like a mining quarry or logging. It's been a while since I remember, and where she ended up marrying him and basically cucking James, and it took all the edge off the character. You know,
Wolverine should never be the Dawson and Pacey relationship.
Exactly. I'm just going to agree with you because I never watched Dawson's Creek.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, never mind. There goes that joke.
But yeah, no, like it was yeah, you know, Wolverine needs to be kind of that alpha. He needs to have a weird history of him just kind of being that loner that floats through the world. And, you know, he's kind of that, it's kind of that like the Legend of Kung Fu, where he was, you know, what's his name?
His origin should have been he woke up one day with an adamantium skeleton, knowing that something had happened to him, but didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and if they want to reveal bits and pieces of that over time, or have it come like whatever happened before that, because that's how it was for the longest period. He woke up one day in a military institute, you know, with all the stuff in him, and like even the Weapon X, I guess 12-part series from Marvel Comics Presents should have been the extent of what we ever learned about his origin. I know that they kept wanting to hint little things here and there, and if they wanted to bring up something from his mysterious past and have it show up in the present, like some bad guy or whatever, cool, that's fine, but never really explain too much of it. Don't explain who he is or who he started as. He always needs that element of he doesn't know where he's from. He has amnesia up to a certain point, and he knows that he had a weird life before. He knows that he traveled. He knows that he just kind of walked the world and got into, kind of like Bruce Banner in the Incredible Hulk TV show. He would wander the world and hitchhike through everything, and then he'd have an adventure here, and then he'd move on. That's who Wolverine. That's what his past should have been. And if they want his past to catch up with him piece by piece, that's fine, but they never should have explored the whole thing. Don't show us the full puzzle.
So interestingly enough, Wolverine was actually killed off. I think it was in 2014, when Charles Soule's Death of Wolverine. Do you think that should have been the definitive end of the character?
As much as I love Wolverine, I'm almost thinking yes. Unless they find a way, unless they shouldn't have brought him back without a way to retcon away origin and to bring back some of the mystery to who Wolverine is. That's I think what was missing. Bringing Wolverine back was fine. Killing him was fine. Bringing him back was fine, but they needed to have a bigger picture in mind with doing it. First of all, he went out like a bitch. And that shouldn't have ever happened either. He shouldn't have gone out with no healing factor and slowly dying of adamantium poisoning anyway. That's not how they should have killed the character. And then dumping a bunch of melted adamantium on him to make him into like a statue thing. That's not how he should have gone out. He
probably should have had his head cut off while he was saving somebody.
Yeah, he should. Well, he should have just, I don't know exactly how he should have gone, but he needed to go out, facing a goddamn army, where he's the last line, and with fighting off 50 or 60 people,
like in the movie.
Yeah, that's how he should have gone out. Where he's just cutting through these assholes, and they find, and they're just wearing him down and wearing him down and wearing him down. That's how he should go out, not half powered, dying, and then with a bunch of metal poured on him. That's a weak way to go out. So, but you know what? If that was how they were going to get rid of him, unless they had a plan for how to bring back the real Wolverine, other than just ignore Dadverine, if they didn't have a plan on how to bring him back and bring back some of the magic that was Wolverine before Origin, they shouldn't have done it.
It's interesting you bring up the return. Charles Soule also wrote that. I believe Steve McNiven did part of the art on that. I think he did maybe the first 2 issues and the last one. But it was before they actually got to Return of Wolverine, there was like 4 or 5 miniseries so they could cash in on it. I think the whole purpose of Wolverine coming back was so they could have like 7 #1 issues or something. What did you think about the way they executed that Return of Wolverine? Because I hated it.
I was furious about it. The one shot was good. The one shot with I think it was Dave Finch art was great. That was amazingly well done. The 4 follow-up miniseries were terrible. They existed solely to fundamentally change other characters. The most egregious one being to retcon Psylocke in the Mystery and Madripoor series. They existed entirely. They had nothing to do with Wolverine. They were 4 miniseries that they were cashing in, and everybody thought we were going to actually see Wolverine at any point in any of these miniseries, and we didn't. It was such a horrendous cash grab.
Cash grab.
Yes, exactly. And And then
crappy writers on most of them.
Yeah, and then when you got to the actual Return of Wolverine miniseries, they cheaped out. First they managed to convince tens of thousands of people to buy 16 issues that didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Before you got to the 5 issues that were going to matter. And then they cheaped out by having Steve McNiven draw only the 1st and 5th issue and had garbage fill in the middle.
So
and
bad.
And then I gave up after issue 2. I didn't even bother to finish it. I said at the time, I said, once I saw that, because I had pre-ordered all my stuff. And once I saw that McNiven wasn't on it on issue 2, it was too late for me to cancel my pull for issue 2. But I told them, take 3 through 5 off my pull. I'm not even going to bother them.
It was rough because his art is brutal. And it's very signature. And then you get to issue 2 and they didn't get anyone that the artist wasn't even... First of all, he wasn't near the skill level, but the style, and the gruesomeness wasn't in the comic anymore. It's like,
yeah, wasn't it Declan Shalvey for the middle 3 issues? What the hell? I mean, Let's be honest. Declan Shalvey he's a competent artist, but he'd be great for storyboarding an apple juice commercial. He's not he's good for indie stuff, but for doing a superhero story, he is not the guy I want. I understand McNiven is expensive, and I understand he's probably more expensive and even slower when he's trying to ape Barry Windsor Smith, which is what he was aiming for on at least issue 1 and 5. From what I've seen, I mean, definitely issue 1. I'm assuming issue 5. I saw a couple of panels from it, but he was aiming to kind of go with that Barry Windsor Smith in the Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X, style, and that was cool. That was awesome. He did the big hair, the kind of really wrinkled, like kind of weathered skin and everything like that, that made Wolverine look, he looked older and he looked worn. And I loved that. But then sticking Declan Shalvey in the middle 3 was so jarring that it killed any interest. I mean, plus the fact that they did, he was running around dressed like a friggin' sous chef from P.F. Chang's for most of the series, and the hot claws thing made no sense. This was the worst executed return I have ever seen, because between all of the one-page Where's Wolverine things that were popping up in other books, where it was just Wolverine showing up 5 minutes after everybody else left and going, hey, is this guy here? No. Okay. Guess I'll be moving along then. You had like 20 of those to try to get people to buy it. Then 16 issues of wasted miniseries. Then these 5 issues. And then it went into the Wolverine and the Infinity Watch thing that made no sense. Like
the movie was out around that time.
Yeah,
trying to cash in,
and none of this made any goddamn sense. And then Wolverine's just magically back in Uncanny X-Men 11.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of caught up, we've definitely talked about Wolverine enough for Hawks and Pox and the X-Force stuff. Most normies, our age probably know Wolverine from the cartoon. Most people probably know Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, or associate Hugh Jackman with Wolverine more than Chris Claremont at this point. What do you think about his portrayal in the movies and in the cartoons? And did they actually have an effect on the comic character, do you think?
I think the movies did. I don't think the cartoon did. It kept him in the blue and yellow. in that costume. It kept him from ever going back to the brown and tan, because for as long as he was in the blue and yellow on the cartoon, he was going to stay in the blue and yellow in the comics too. That was pretty much a guarantee. That's really the only major impact that the cartoon had back on the comics. But the movies had a lot of impact on the comics. One, from Wolverine kind of slowly growing. He's about normal human size now, instead of being 5'3". He's supposed to be 5'3". He's not a big guy. And now he's about 5'8" or 5'10", just kind of magically. They don't give him that small stature anymore. Because Hugh Jackman's big. They also kind of turned him into the leader, and Wolverine was never the leader. In fact, he actively shirked leadership, like the actual role of being the leader, because he knows he's not reliable, and he knows that he thinks emotionally. So he's not the guy to be the leader. I mean, hell, Storm quit. Rogue had been a villain 10 minutes previous. She joined the X-Men about 15 minutes ago. And Wolverine and Storm has to go on a vision quest. Wants Wolverine to take over. He's like, hey, how about Rogue? She was a bad guy like 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's from a military background. I was like, people talking about Wolverine's a leader. I was like, he'd be the worst military leader ever because he's invulnerable. He was like, yeah, let's just keep going. Like, what? We're all going to die.
he rushes headlong into things without any strategy because he's basically invulnerable. And if he takes a couple hundred rounds to the chest, no biggie. That's not the guy. He reacts emotionally. He loses his cool. He literally has a berserker rage. Who the hell wants a guy with a berserker rage to be in charge? That is the worst possible idea. He's the guy that you keep as your secret weapon. He's the tank you send in to go and just F shit up.
The break in case of emergency guy.
Yes. That's so, and then, but they've kind of, the Wolverine that was, they kind of showed the Berserker Rage in X-Men 2, but by X-Men 3, he's this calm, stoic leader. And then in Days of Future Past, he was still calm and collected. Now they made a plot point in that if he didn't stay calm, he was gonna, it would break the connection, and his mind would jump back to the present. So I get that they at least had a reason for it in that movie. But X-Men 3, and that's kind of that original trilogy, and then the Wolverine solo movies. The first one didn't do any favors. The second one was good, but still, he wasn't mindless. He didn't get into that mindless berserker rage at all. He was still like, I get that they were trying for like that kind of, that the samurai Ronin kind of, Gaijin, everything. They were trying to ape the echo the Claremont Miller run, but he was too in control. And he was too much of a leader. And that's the thing. They kind of made him the leader because he was the most popular. Yep. It's kind of like sports. Whenever they mistakenly just make the guy that's the best on the team the captain, instead of the guy that leads the team, and deciding that just because he's the best means that he can also lead them isn't always the truth.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up here, Doc. Thank you so much for joining me for these conversations about Wolverine. We covered a wide gamut of character traits, great stories, great creators, some of the things that have, maybe where he's fallen off the wayside, and some things they can improve. I really appreciate it, man. I'm glad you came on the channel and talk Wolverine with me.
Oh, thank you, man. Anytime. I love talking Wolverine. And if anybody wants to go and read something really good, go and read probably the first 50 or 60 issues of the first ongoing Wolverine series. Great stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later, brother.
Take care, man.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.